Commander Corral pressed his long fingers against the cool surface of the command console, watching the holographic display flicker with another crushing defeat. The Third Fleet was gone, completely wiped out by Varkesh raiders near the outer rim. His people, the Zephyrians, once controlled dozens of star systems. Now they barely held on to 3. His communications officer, a young female named Veltar, approached with her head hanging low. "Sir, the Galactic Council has reviewed our request for military assistance." Corral didn't need to ask. He could see the answer in her defeated posture. "They denied it again? They said we're strategically irrelevant," Veltar whispered. The Altarian ambassador actually laughed during the session. He said watching us fight is like watching children play with energy swords. Across the galaxy, the Zephyrians had become a joke. Their ancestors had been explorers and traders, not warriors. When the Varkesh Empire began their aggressive expansion, the Zephyrians were caught completely unprepared. Their energy spears were beautiful works of art, but useless against armor. Their crystalline ships looked magnificent, but fell apart under sustained fire. Corral walked to the large window overlooking his homeworld. Cities of crystal spires stretched to the horizon, each one representing thousands of years of peaceful civilization. Soon, they might all be rubble. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving strange transmissions from the far edge of the galaxy, from a system that isn't on our maps." The commander raised an eyebrow. Unmapped systems were rare. Most had been catalogued centuries ago. "Put it on screen." The transmission was choppy, filled with static. But the images were clear enough. Bipedal creatures with pale skin and odd features. They appeared to be in some kind of military formation, carrying primitive kinetic projectiles. "This is from a planet they call Earth?" the officer said, struggling with the pronunciation. "The species calls themselves humans." Corral leaned forward, studying the strange creatures. They looked vulnerable, soft. No natural armor or weapons, but something about their movements caught his attention. They moved with purpose, with coordination that seemed almost instinctive. "Sir, according to deep space scanners, these humans are engaged in constant warfare, not against aliens, but against each other. Their planet is covered in military installations and weapons." The communications officer Veltar gasped. "They fight their own species? How do they survive?" Corral was thinking the same thing. Every civilized species in the galaxy had evolved, past internal conflict millennia ago. Warfare was something you did against different species, not your own kind. The idea was barbaric, primitive, and yet... "Have they had contact with any Galactic Council species?" Corral asked. "No, sir. They're completely isolated. Most scouts who've detected them have filed reports labeling them as primitive and not worth contact." A plan began forming in Corral's mind. The Council thought the Zephyrians were too weak to deserve help. But what if they allied with someone the Council considered even weaker, someone so primitive that the other species wouldn't even notice until it was too late? "Prepare an ambassador. Ship," Corral commanded suddenly. "We're going to make contact with these humans." Veltar looked shocked. "Sir, surely you don't mean to ally with such primitives? They don't even have energy weapons." "No," Corral agreed, watching the images of humans practicing complex battle maneuvers. "They have something else. Something we've forgotten." He didn't voice his thoughts, but he was thinking about the way the humans moved. Like predators. Like creatures that had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting for survival. Every other species in the galaxy had achieved peace thousands of years ago. They'd forgotten what real warfare looked like. These humans, these barbaric creatures that fought their own kind, might be exactly what the galaxy needed, or exactly what the galaxy feared. Over the next few days, Corral prepared for the mission, carefully. He selected Ambassador Thalara for the first contact mission. She was young, adaptable, and had studied hundreds of different species during her training. If anyone could successfully communicate with these humans, it would be her. The Galactic Council continued to ignore Zephyrian pleas for help. The Varkesh continued their brutal expansion, and somewhere in the darkness between the stars, a small Zephyrian ship made its way toward a blue-green planet that most of the galaxy had dismissed as irrelevant. Corral stood in his command center, one final time before the ship departed, looking at the star charts. Somewhere out there, the fate of his people hung in the balance. He just hoped these humans were as dangerous as they appeared to be. Ambassador Thalara's ship dropped out of hyperdrive near Earth's moon, her crystalline hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the communication array. The blue planet below looked so small, so insignificant compared to the massive fortress worlds of the Varkesh Empire. How could such a tiny world possibly help them? Her ship's computer had already deciphered the human radio frequencies. The amount of military chatter was incredible. These creatures seemed to be talking about warfare constantly. Strategies, weapons, troop movements. It was like their entire civilization revolved around conflict. Incoming transmission, her communications, officer announced. The voice that came through was clear and direct. Unknown vessel, this is Sole Defense Command. State your purpose or be classified as hostile. Thalara activated her translator. Greetings. I am Ambassador Thalara of the Zephyrian Collective. We come seeking diplomatic contact. A pause. Then, maintain current position. An escort will guide you to landing. Within minutes, sleek fighter jets surrounded her ship. Thalara studied them through her viewport. They were primitive by galactic standards. No energy shields, no plasma weapons. But they moved with a precision that made her scales prickle. These pilots were good. The landing pad was surrounded by soldiers. As Thalara stepped out, she was surprised by their appearance. They were shorter than most galactic species with soft pink skin and exposed faces. No natural armor at all. Yet they carried themselves like predators ready to strike. A man approached, his uniform crisp and decorated with various insignia. Ambassador Thalara, I'm General Lee Hyunwoo, Earth Defense Command. His eyes were sharp, analytical. As they walked, he asked direct questions about her ship's capabilities, her weapons, her defensive systems. Most ambassadors would have been offended by such probing, but Thalara found herself impressed by his tactical thinking. You mentioned your people are at war, Lee said as they entered a conference room. Show me. Thalara activated her holographic display, showing the Varkesh attacks on Zephyrian colonies. Lee watched silently, his expression growing darker with each scene of destruction. Your enemies, he said finally. They attack in straight lines? Yes, it's the traditional formation for, they cluster their ships together? For mutual support, of course. And they announce their attacks with honor challenges? Thalara nodded, confused by his tone. Lee burst into laughter. Not a polite chuckle, but genuine amusement. He called in several other officers, showing them the battle records. They pointed at the screen, speaking rapidly in Korean. Sir. One officer said in English. With respect to our guests, these Varkesh fight like children. No flanking maneuvers, no deception, no combined arms. They're sitting targets. Captain Kim Ji-hai leaned forward. General, look at their fleet formations. They're perfectly symmetrical, beautiful but tactically insane. One missile with a good spread pattern could destroy half their formations. Thalara felt her confidence wavering. But they've conquered dozens of systems. Against people who fight the same way, Lee interrupted. Honor duels and formal challenges. It's like watching two people agree to stand still while they shoot at each other. That evening, the humans showed her their military capabilities. Not their most advanced weapons. She could sense they were holding back. But what they displayed was enough to make her hearts race. Their aircraft moved in coordinated groups, striking targets and disappearing before retaliation. Their ground troops used cover, moved unpredictably, attacked from multiple directions. Simultaneously, they showed her something called a combined arms assault, where different units worked together in ways no galactic military had conceived. How do you train such coordination? She asked. We fight each other, General Lee said simply. Has been our nature for thousands of years. Every tactic we develop, our enemies develop counters. So we develop counter-counters. We've been evolving, warfare while the rest of the galaxy was achieving peace. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was having its regular session. When the news of the Zephyrian-Human Alliance was announced, the Great Chamber erupted in laughter. Ambassador Krell of the Andromedans nearly fell from his floating platform, cackling. The weakest species has allied with savages. What's next? The Varkesh seeking alliance with space parasites. Admiral Korvash of the Varkesh Empire was watching the broadcast from his command ship, his scarred face twisted into a cruel smile. These humans will make entertaining target practice. Their pink skin will look lovely against the black void. Issued orders immediately. A small strike force would be sent to this Earth to demonstrate Varkesh superiority. It would be broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to anyone foolish enough to oppose them. Back on Earth, General Lee was finalizing plans with Thalara. When they come, he said quietly, and they will come, we'll show them how humans really fight. Thalara looked at the tactical displays surrounding them. For the first time since the war began, she felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. The Varkesh fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system 3 weeks later. Admiral Korvash commanded personally, his flagship leading a strike force of 30 vessels. He expected this to be a routine demonstration of power. Maybe the humans would provide a few minutes of entertainment before their inevitable destruction. Colonel Park Myung-ho stood in the war room beneath Seoul, studying the approaching enemy. The room buzzed with quiet activity as officers from different branches coordinated their response. Above them, fighter squadrons scrambled while orbital defense platforms charged their weapons. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Yoon Min Ah, "enemy fleet is maintaining parade formation. They're actually broadcasting their approach vectors." Park shook his head in disbelief. In human warfare, revealing your attack plan was suicide. They're treating this like a ceremony, not a battle. General Lee Hyun-woo arrived, with Ambassador Thalara beside him. The Zephyrian's scales shimmered with anxiety as she watched the human preparations. "Your people seem calm," she observed. "We've been preparing for this our entire history," Lee responded. "The only difference is now we're fighting aliens instead of each other." On his flagship, Pride of Varkesh, Admiral Korvash reviewed the tactical data. The humans had primitive chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. Their largest vessel was barely the size of a Varkesh corvette. This would be over quickly. "Begin the honor broadcast," he commanded. Across Earth, every screen displayed the same message: Admiral Korvash, in full ceremonial armor, declaring formal challenge to Earth's champions. He listed his victories, his accolades, and demanded single combat between the strongest warriors. In the war room, the humans listened to the translation in stunned silence. "He wants a duel?" asked Colonel Park. "In space. Ship-to-ship combat," Thalara explained. "It's traditional. The strongest warrior faces the challenger." Captain Kim Ji-hai started laughing. "He's asking us to line up and fight him one at a time?" "Accept the challenge," General Lee ordered suddenly. Every officer turned to stare at him. The acceptance was broadcast immediately. Admiral Korvash smiled with satisfaction. These humans understood honor at least. The battle began exactly 1 hour later. The Varkesh fleet arranged itself in a perfect line, their energy shields shimmering. They waited for the human champion to approach. Instead, 300 nuclear missiles streaked up from Earth's surface. Korvash barely had time to register what was happening before the first impacts struck his front line. The missiles weren't aimed at his flagship. They targeted the smaller vessels on his flanks. Explosions erupted across his formation. "Shields up! All ships! Evasive maneuvers!" he roared. But the humans weren't finished. While the Varkesh scrambled to respond to the missile attack, fighter squadrons appeared from behind Earth's moon. They'd been hiding, powered down, waiting. The fighters moved like nothing the Varkesh had seen before. Instead of honorable jousts, they attacked in swarms, hitting targets and disappearing before return fire could lock on. "This is dishonorable," Korvash screamed. "Coward tactics." Colonel Park, now aboard the command ship Sejong the Great, responded calmly. "This is war. The human strategy unfolded with brutal efficiency. Orbital defense platforms hidden on asteroids opened fire on the Varkesh rear guard. The aliens found themselves attacked from all directions. But the real surprise came when Varkesh boarding pods launched at the human command ship. This was traditional Varkesh warfare, close combat between warriors. Surely these soft humans would crumble in personal battle. The first boarding pod breached Sejong the Great's hull. 20 Varkesh warriors in powered armor stormed through, expecting to find cowering crew members. They found Sergeant Choi Hyunjae and his squad waiting. The humans were smaller, weaker, without natural weapons or armor. But they fought with tactics the Varkesh couldn't comprehend. Instead of meeting the charge head-on, they used cover, crossfire, and coordinated movements. When one Varkesh warrior cornered Private Young So Min, she didn't panic. She had been trained for this scenario, hundreds of times. As the alien raised his energy blade, she dropped, rolled, and fired her rifle into a weak point in his armor that human intelligence had identified. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. The Varkesh were individually stronger and better, armed, but the humans fought as a unit. When Sergeant Choi was wounded, his squad covered him. When they ran low on ammunition, they used grenades. When cornered, they fought with knives and bare hands. The battle turned when Captain Kang Tae-hyung's squad reached the Varkesh boarding pod. Instead of simply repelling the invaders, they used the pod's own systems against it. Private Oh Soo-jin, a computer specialist, hacked the pod's navigation and fired it back at the Varkesh flagship. Admiral Korvash watched in growing horror as his perfect formation collapsed. His ships, designed for frontal assault and honor combat, were being picked apart by an enemy that refused to fight fairly. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the humans are using our own missile pods against us." It was true. Human engineers had somehow reprogrammed captured Varkesh weapons to target their creators. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 12 Varkesh ships were destroyed, and the rest fled in disorder. Earth had lost 3 fighter squadrons and 1 orbital platform. That night, across the galaxy, the footage played on every screen. The mighty Varkesh, defeated by primitives. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as Admiral Korvash's retreat was broadcast. In her quarters aboard, the human command ship Ambassador Thalara sat quietly, processing what she had witnessed. These humans hadn't just won. They had revolutionized warfare itself. The galaxy would never be the same. Within days of the Varkesh defeat, everything changed across the galaxy. The battle footage spread through subspace communications faster than anyone expected. Species that had ignored or mocked humans for centuries suddenly wanted to know everything about these strange primates from Earth. Ambassador Krell of the Andromedans was the first to break. He arrived at Earth's orbital station 3 days after the battle, his usual arrogance replaced by nervous curiosity. "General Lee," he said, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly, "perhaps we were hasty in dismissing your species." The real test came when Admiral Thazak of the Altarian Defense Corps arrived. His people had laughed loudest when the Zephyrian-Human Alliance was announced. Now he stood in the Sol war room studying human tactical displays with growing alarm. "Show me how you did it," he demanded. Major Song Yoonji stepped forward with a holographic display. "We don't fight in lines. We use something called combined arms." She showed him the battle breakdown. How missiles had created chaos while fighters exploited confusion. How different units worked together instead of operating separately. How deception and surprise were weapons as important as lasers and shields. "This is..." Thazak paused, searching for words. "This is like teaching a child that there are numbers beyond counting." The Altarians were the first to request human military advisors. Major Song found herself aboard Altarian vessels, teaching their crews to fight like humans. The changes were immediate and dramatic. "Don't announce your attacks," she explained to confused Altarian captains. "Hit them when they least expect it." "But the codes of honorable warfare..." "Honor doesn't resurrect the dead," Song interrupted. "Your job is to win and go home to your families." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Nam Ju-wan was revolutionizing fighter tactics throughout the Allied fleets. Human pilots had always trained to fight against equal opponents. When they started adapting alien technology to their fighters, the results were terrifying. The first modified human fighter appeared over Rigel 7 during a Varkesh raid. It looked like a normal F-35, but hidden beneath its hull were stolen Varkesh shield generators. When enemy energy bolts struck, they rippled harmlessly off the invisible barrier. Varkesh pilots thought their weapons had malfunctioned, until human missiles tore through their formations. Commander Yoon Sang-wook led the naval revolution. Human destroyers, upgraded with alien energy weapons and Earth stealth technology, became invisible death dealers. They would appear without warning, strike hard, and vanish before enemy sensors could lock on. "We call it ghost warfare," Yoon explained to Admiral Thazak. "Be everywhere and nowhere." The Varkesh Empire grew desperate. Emperor Thane convened his war council, his scaled face twisted with rage. "How are these mammals defeating us?" he roared. General Kathresh, his top military commander, displayed tactical analysis. "They don't follow any known patterns, my lord. They attack from multiple directions, use our own weapons against us, and refuse formal combat. Then we'll force them into formal combat." But every attempt failed. When Varkesh fleets gathered for traditional battles, humans didn't show up. Instead, they struck supply lines, hit isolated outposts, and disrupted communications. It was like fighting smoke. The psychological impact was devastating. Varkesh warriors, trained from childhood to believe in their superiority, couldn't understand how primitive creatures were defeating them. Morale collapsed across the empire. On his flagship, Admiral Korvash studied intelligence reports about humans. The more he learned, the more terrified he became. These weren't just warriors. They were evolved killers. Their entire planet was divided into competing nations that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war against each other. They're apex predators, his intelligence officer reported. Their evolution was shaped by constant conflict. While we advanced to post-warfare, societies they kept fighting, kept improving. Meanwhile, the alliance was growing. The Zephyrians, once the galaxy's weaklings, now commanded respect. Ambassador Thalara found herself welcoming representatives from dozens of species, all eager to learn human tactics. Captain Kim Ji-hai established the first multi-species training academy on Mars. Alien officers learned human strategy while humans studied alien technology. The fusion was creating something entirely new. "We're not just changing how we fight," General Lee told the assembled commanders. "We're changing what warfare means." The breakthrough came when Captain Kang Taehyung's engineering team successfully reverse-engineered Varkesh hyperdrives. Suddenly, human ships could match alien speed and maneuverability. But humans added their own touches. Varkesh ships appeared on sensors exactly as they were. Large, powerful, obvious. Human ships could spoof their signatures, appear smaller or larger, even pretend to be merchant vessels until the last second. Colonel Park Myung-ho's task force used this advantage brilliantly. His squadron would jump into Varkesh systems disguised as trade ships. By the time the enemy realized their mistake, human missiles were already in the air. The Galactic Council, once dismissive, now watched every human victory with growing unease. Ambassador Krell spoke for many when he said, "We created a monster by ignoring them." But it was too late. The humans had tasted galactic warfare, and they were very, very good at it. Emperor Thane, watching another defeat on his strategic display, made a fateful decision. "If conventional warfare won't work," he hissed, "then we'll use unconventional means." The stage was set for the final confrontation. The war reached its turning point when Emperor Thane revealed his desperation. Intelligence reports reached Earth, showing massive Varkesh ships gathering at the Empire's capital. These weren't warships, they were bioweapon deployment vessels. General Lee Hyun-woo studied the data in the Seoul Command Center, his face grim. Ambassador Thalara stood beside him, her crystalline features reflecting the harsh light of the tactical displays. "These weapons," she whispered, "they don't just kill soldiers. They destroy all organic matter on a planet. How long until they're ready? Lee asked. 3 days maximum. The humans had a choice. They could consolidate their forces, prepare defenses, maybe save Earth and a few allied worlds. Or they could do something the galaxy had never seen before. A preemptive strike at the heart of enemy territory. Admiral Yoon Sang-wook received his orders within hours. The entire human fleet, reinforced by allied ships, would make a direct assault on Varkesh Prime. No gradual approach, no probing attacks. One massive strike to end the war. Sir? Captain Kim Ji-hai approached Yoon on the bridge of the flagship Incheon. The other admirals are requesting confirmation. A direct attack on their capital? They're calling it suicide. Yoon smiled grimly. Tell them humans have been perfecting suicide missions for generations. The difference is we've learned how to make them successful. As the human armada gathered, something unprecedented happened. Ships from across the galaxy began arriving. Species that had refused to help against the Varkesh now came to fight alongside humans. The Andromedans brought their powerful energy cannons. The Rigelians provided advanced shields. Even minor species contributed what they could. But everyone understood. This was a human operation. Colonel Park Myung-ho briefed the commanders. We've studied Varkesh Prime for months. They have orbital fortresses, planetary shields, defense fleets, everything traditional warfare says should make it impossible to assault. So why are we doing it? Asked an Altarian captain. Because we're not using traditional warfare. The plan was audacious even by human standards. While the main fleet approached visibly, human special forces had already infiltrated the outer system months ago. Tiny ships, disguised as space debris, had been waiting. The attack began not with ships, but with sabotage. As the Varkesh fleet moved to intercept the human force, their own communication networks began failing. Navigation systems provided false readings. Even their bioweapon ships found their systems mysteriously malfunctioning. Captain Oh Soo-jin, aboard a stealth infiltration ship, smiled as she watched Varkesh ships colliding due to corrupted navigation. Data. Phase 1 complete, she reported. The main battle commenced when Admiral Yoon's fleet entered the system. But instead of the expected frontal assault, something else happened. The human ships scattered, moving in seemingly random directions. Emperor Thane, watching from his orbital palace, bellowed orders. What are they doing? This makes no tactical sense. His military advisors were equally confused. The humans appeared to be running away, but in all directions at once. It looked like panic. It wasn't panic. It was perfection. Each human ship was heading to a predetermined position. When they all arrived simultaneously, they had surrounded Varkesh Prime completely. Not just the planet, the entire system. Now, Yoon commanded. What followed broke every rule of galactic warfare. Instead of attacking military targets first, humans hit infrastructure, power stations, communication hubs, supply depots. Within minutes, the Varkesh defense network was blind, deaf, and disconnected. Lieutenant Colonel Min Ho-jin led the assault on the bioweapon facilities. His Marines used tactics that horrified even allied forces. They moved through Varkesh defenses like deadly ghosts, appearing and vanishing, striking where least expected. When Varkesh defenders tried to use their bioweapons anyway, they found the deployment systems had been sabotaged. Worse, the weapons were somehow turned back on their creators. Impossible! Emperor Thane screamed as his own palace defenses turned their guns on Varkesh positions. The final phase was pure human brutality. When conventional forces failed to protect their leader, Varkesh nobles attempted to negotiate. They offered tribute, territorial concessions, even their own emperor as a prisoner. The human response was swift and merciless. Every bioweapon facility was destroyed. Every ship capable of planetary destruction was eliminated. The Varkesh war machine wasn't just defeated, it was surgically dismantled. Emperor Thane, captured in his palace, faced Admiral Yoon in person. The aliens' arrogance had crumbled into terror. "You fight without honor," Thane whispered. Yoon's response became legendary across the galaxy. Honor doesn't protect the innocent from your bioweapons. We fight to win and to survive. The war ended not with negotiations, but with complete, Farkish surrender. Their empire was broken up, their aggressive species scattered to individual worlds. The bioweapons were destroyed, every formula deleted. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber that had once echoed with laughter at human primitiveness now fell silent when Admiral Yoon entered. The Council offers humanity permanent membership, Ambassador Krell announced, his voice shaking, with full military authority over galactic security. The age of human dominance had begun. Species that had ignored or mocked them now competed for human attention. Military academies across the galaxy begged for human instructors. Ambassador Thalara, now the primary liaison between humanity and the Galactic Council, sometimes remembered those first days when her people were the galaxy's joke. Now she watched General Lee Hyunwoo reviewing plans for new defensive technologies, working alongside engineers from dozens of species. "You've changed everything," she told him. Lee smiled. "We didn't change it. We just showed the galaxy what war really looked like. They've been playing games for millennia. We turned it into a science." In his quarters aboard the rebuilt Varkesh Prime Station, Colonel Park Myung-ho studied star charts. Rebel factions were stirring in the Outer Rim. Pirates thought they could challenge the new order. He smiled. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. Fighting aliens was just a change of scenery. The galaxy had learned to fear its new protectors, and that, the humans decided, was exactly how it should be.